Building an audience as an entrepreneur is not the same as building an audience when you're an influencer. And you should stop listening to advice from influencers if you want to build a business. Because advice like posting daily is absolutely horrible unless all you do all day is create content. Because all you need is attention. 365 videos that all get 10,000 views will be outperformed by 20 videos that all get 200,000 views on average. Yet you needed to create 20 videos a year instead of 365. That's the reality of content. Instagram will not reward you because you're working harder than everybody else, but only if you become absolutely irreplaceable despite everybody else. I went from having 0 followers on Instagram and posting every single day to having more than 100,000 followers for one of my businesses and more than 300,000 followers for my second business, We Are Stoa. And I want to give you all the do's and don'ts to go from 0 to having an audience of 10,000 buyers, if not more, on Instagram. No ads, no tips and tricks, just learnings. 1. Emulate and innovate. The number one reason why there's creators who blow up after a couple of weeks and others literally needing years until they get their first viral reel is actually just because of one reason, and that is because they are arrogant. Arrogance is the number one reason why people fail on social media. You go on social media and you think, oh, I know what goes viral. I looked at Daniel Dalen and Iman Gadzhi and all these guys, and I know what goes viral. I'll just be myself in front of a camera, be authentic, post a vlog, and it'll go viral, because all the other vlogs go viral as well, right? Vlogs are a trend. Yet almost nobody managed to build a brand with vlogs, except for the top upper echelon guys in the online business space. Why is that? Because we didn't watch Daniel Dalen because of his content, or Iman Gadzhi because of his style of content. We watched them because they're Daniel Dalen and Iman. Daniel Dalen has multiple 8-figure, if not 9-figure businesses like Ecomflow in Hong Kong. Most people don't even have $1 million business, let alone in Hong Kong. So he has the most unique life ever, and it is genuinely just interesting to watch him. But if I'm gonna see one more vlog from some guy earning 100K a month or spending $150,000 in Saint-Tropez, I'm gonna There are dozens, if not hundreds of other people who do the exact same thing. And vlogs are not going viral. You actually have no idea what performs on social media, and you need to find it out. And that is by first emulating and then later on innovating. Emulation basically means that you take an idea from somebody that worked already and you reframe it so that it is your own idea, and you then use it for your own account. You basically take what worked already and you repurpose it for your own purposes. How do you do that? Well, you take an idea and you basically give them your own path on that idea. Let's say I make a video on how to grow your first 10,000 followers, like right now. I will have a completely different path than somebody else on how to grow your first 10,000 followers, because there's probably a million ways to achieve it and a million different ways to get to 10,000 followers. And that's just the reality of business. That's the reality of mastering any craft. And you need to give the people your own path. But if you try to solve a problem that nobody wanted to be solved in the first place, all you're doing is wasting your time. So take ideas that worked already, emulate them, give these people your own advice, and that will be your way in order to grow. Do that until you find your thing. And once you find your thing, you can rinse and repeat those types of ideas or that kind of topic or that style of video over and over again by innovating your own ideas. But until then, just take ideas that worked already. If you guys knew how many people online, like the biggest guys ever on social media, like how much they're actually copying, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. But I can't say it because then I'll get in trouble. 2, your internal dictates your external. Your internal dictates your external actually just comes down to one singular principle. Your videos aren't boring. You are. What I mean by that is this: if you're completely unenergized, your videos will be completely unenergizing. If you are completely uninteresting, well then maybe you don't really have the knowledge in order to talk about the things that you're talking about. If you seem unconfident in front of a camera, it's not because you seem unconfident, it's because you are unconfident. And that comes down to you and yourself. So look at the man in the mirror and say, hey, am I actually eligible to talk about this topic? If I'm not, what instead am I eligible to talk about? I have hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, yet I'm teaching you how to get your first 10,000 followers. Because I'm very confident to talk about this topic, because I've literally done it multiple times for myself and for my clients. So that's why. Clear up your internal, and externally your videos will be better. I've literally had a client who went from having hundreds of thousands of followers and literally getting millions, if not tens of millions of impressions every single month, to getting a couple thousand a month. And the reason why was because we got all these views and we focused on building a business around it. So now we had 4 different offers and 7 people in the team and everything. And it was also inflated, but his mind was now all torn apart between 7 employees and 4 different offers and the business and this and that. But he actually had no time for his subconscious mind to think about the content. His mind was a mess. So content was a mess, and he just ended up stuttering over his words for 10 to 20 minutes on YouTube, and it didn't perform. The same was on Instagram Reels. He almost fell off before we realized, and we just fixed it. The third one is optimists die first. James Stockdale was a US Navy Vice Admiral and former Vietnam War prisoner of war. You see, in 1965, James Stockdale was actually on a plane, and the plane that he was on was shot down, so he needed to jump off the plane and basically fall to the ground with a parachute. However, back then, parachutes couldn't be steered, so you couldn't go forward or to the side, left and right. You could basically just fall slower, so you had no control over where you would land. And whilst falling, he actually looked down to the ground and he saw a whole battalion of Vietnamese soldiers pointing all their guns at him, waiting for him until he hits the ground in order to capture him and put him into war prison. And they did that, and he became a war prisoner. And years after he was released, he actually talked to a man who was in the concentration camps of Germany during World War II. Whilst talking to him, they both saw the same pattern. Optimists die first. The second ones were pessimists, and the one who survived were the ones who had 0 expectations. Why is that? If you go to prison, a lot of people actually will think, oh, we'll be released in a couple of weeks, we'll be released by Easter, we'll be released by Christmas, and then everything will be just like before, and everything will be all right, and we'll go back to our families, and everything will be amazing, and it's all good. We only need to wait for a couple of days. And when it became Christmas, or it became Eastern time, or they waited for a couple of weeks or a couple of days, they lost all their faith. They didn't eat, they didn't drink, they didn't find any friends, and neither did they get along with the guards, because they thought that all of that was absolutely irrelevant, because they would be saved in a couple of weeks. They didn't, and these were the first ones who died because they lost complete faith. However, the pessimists were the second ones who died, and that was because they never had any faith in the first place, and they basically never believed that they would ever be released. Matter of fact, they thought that they would lose that war. And then they were the third ones, the ones who had 0 expectations. The ones who had 0 expectations were the ones who actually survived, were released out of prison years later, and went back to their children and to their wives. And the reason why was because there was no possibility for them to lose faith. They didn't expect something from something that they couldn't control. You can control how many videos you put out, but you can't control when your first video will go viral. So if right now you have this notion in your mind that in a couple of weeks you might go viral, yeah, you might, but you might go viral in a couple of years. All right, that's very... that's a bit too much, but probably a couple of months. If you don't have 3 months of time constantly creating content and putting out videos, well, then don't even try. Go do cold outreach, continue doing ads, but don't expect anything. I always tell my clients, if you have 3 months time, great, let's get into business. If you don't have 3 months time and you're expecting something in 1 or 2 months, I can't help you. There was a book that I once read. Models Attract Women Through Honesty, which is a dating book, but it's actually not only about dating. It says that the most masculine thing you can do is to be as vulnerable as possible. And vulnerability doesn't mean that you're going to be emotional and talk about your feelings, but what it actually means is that you're supposed to pursue what you desire without expecting anything in return. And that way, you'll be the most masculine and the most attractive version of yourself. And that's true. The most masculine habit you can develop is just to pursue what you desire without expecting anything in return. So pursue your first 10,000 followers without expecting to blow up in a couple of weeks. 4. People hate being sold to, but they love to go shopping. That is actually probably the one quote that made me the most money in my entire life. And some of our clients scaled from 4 figures to 7 figures a year, or 4 figures a month to 6 figures a month within 3 months. And the reason why was just because people hate being sold to, but they love to go shopping. And that's something that we realized quite quickly. When people go on Instagram, you must understand that you're trying to build an audience of buyers and not just fans, like an influencer wants to do it. So the way that you do it is actually to treat them not like customers, but to treat them like viewers who might be interested in your product if you build enough intrigue. Let's say that I walk into a mall, and in that mall, I just walk through it because I'm wanting to just have a walk and just look at some things. And when a sales rep comes at me and he tries to sell me something that I'm actually not interested in, I'll tell him to f off because I'm not interested in that thing and I'm actually just here to enjoy myself, get some ice cream, eat something and enjoy my time with my friends. However, if I now go past the exact same shop and I see the exact same product, it might be that I actually like that product that I'm seeing, and I might be intrigued enough to walk into the store and try it on. And I might even be so intrigued that I go to the cashier and I say, hey, could you actually put that to the side for like a week? I'm going to be paid in 5 days and then I'll love to just come back and buy the thing. And then I will buy the thing. However, I would have never considered buying that thing if somebody would have tried to sell me something. That is the principle of not selling something, but making them go shopping. Don't act as if people go on the platform to buy something from you. There's so many people who do direct call to actions and direct marketing and treat this like advertisement. And that used to work when Iman Gadzhi was the #1 guy in online business. But nowadays that doesn't work anymore because it has been done so often that people are just tired. The market is completely fatigued and they don't want to hear your call to actions or your this or that. And if they do want to hear a call to actions, it should be a maximum of a couple seconds on Instagram and maybe 17 seconds on YouTube or on long form content overall. So do not hard pitch people. What you should do instead is to actually look at every single thing that your competition is doing and do the exact opposite of what they're doing so that nobody ever gets a chance to associate you with other coaches, service providers, or whatever. Why? Because 99% of coaches are 1, very bad at marketing, 2, very bad at sales, and 3, very bad at delivering a service. You don't want to be associated with these 3 traits at all. So disassociate yourself from these people by understanding what they do and doing the exact opposite. What's funny is the reason why my clients blow up so quickly is because we always just look at the market and we do the exact opposite. Our competition would go ahead and have a landing page that is so fancy and so well written out and have all the case studies and all of that, and then in the middle of a video or at the end of a video they would tell them, yeah, you should click on the link in my description so that you can go on my landing page and watch my VSL and buy my product and book a call and get on a consultation call, whilst we literally say, I'm selling a course and I'm selling a course because I'm trying to make a bag and I would love you to buy that course. And that works better because people value transparency so much in a world where everybody is trying to trick you into buying their course. The same is with landing pages. We don't actually use any landing pages, and if we use them, we usually just have a 3-minute video on there because we upload our VSLs on YouTube, because people don't raise their guard on YouTube. They raise their guard when they go on a landing page and they see the typical headline and the sub-headline and then the button below the VSL and everything. That works incredibly well. And oftentimes we replace landing pages completely with DM appointment setters. With that being said, if you have any questions about any of the 4 principles that I just showed to you, emulate then innovate, your internal dictates your external, optimists die first, or people hate being sold to but they love to go shopping. I'll leave a link in the description for you to DM me if you have any questions, or just comment down below and I'll answer all the questions that you have myself. I'll tell my appointment setter to take a day off if I get too many DMs. With that being said, I thank you for your time and I hope I could help you. Bye bye.